Hello, and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 3, Episode 7, What is Starfleet? This video is a part of a series of videos where I review episodes of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, so I have to start with the spoiler warning for Strange New Worlds up to Season 3, Episode 7. If you have not seen up to this point, you will not want to watch this episode or this video, otherwise some things will be spoiled for you. So, yeah, I didn't care for this episode. I'm not going to beat around the bush. I didn't like this episode, and this is a format that other shows have done repeatedly, which I do not like. I think is lazy and cliche, and my sister, I believe, was warning me that an episode like this was coming up, and it was foreshadowed by having Ortegas' brother have the camera and filming around, and it was like, get that camera out of my face. So that already started in several other episodes, but it's funny that his final film didn't include any of the footage from the other episodes, only footage from this episode. That's weird, so why was he even filming all that time? But anyway, so this is a tired format that I've seen done before in many other shows, such as Babylon 5, Battlestar Galactica, and Stargate SG-1, and every time they do it, I don't like it. And there's probably more shows that I'm not even thinking of. Well, maybe Farscape. I don't know. I'm sure there's more shows that done this dumbass format, where you have a reporter or, a filmmaker or someone who wants to do a documentary or a news program on their main characters, and they're like very antagonistic to the main characters and trying to portray them in a negative light, and they're constantly being like, get that camera out of my face, and they're like, they don't really want to allow the person to film it, but they're being forced to by some person above them, and so the person is like trying to be very antagonistic towards our heroes and portray them in a negative light, but then by the end of the episode, they realize that, hey, there actually are heroes, and I was wrong to judge them that way, and I'm gonna sing their praises now. Like, it's so cliche. Like, I never liked this to begin with. I never liked it in the first place. I fucking hate it. It's lazy. It's formulaic, and like I predicted, like where the episode was going, because obviously it's gonna end up with him being like, "Oh, I was wrong about." Like, this is so fucking stupid. It really frustrates me. But the thing is, episodes like, or shows like Battlestar Galactica or Babylon 5 or Stargate SG-1 wasn't as bad as this. Like, it's worse because this is Star Trek, and Star Trek doesn't, like, SG-1 or whatever, like, it's common for to have the press or whatever and have them be a bit antagonistic or whatever, but in Star Trek, like, there's no, like, the Federation shouldn't have this, like, antagonistic view of Starfleet. And more to the point, there's not any movies. Like, they made it clear. Like, this whole thing was presented as a film by what's-his-face Ortegas. I'm like, what do you mean film? Like, there's no films in the 23rd century. Like, they moved beyond this. They made it very clear that that's not really. And to be fair, I've been upset with modern Trek several times before when it presented like the media has the way they are in modern times, and saying that that's how they exist in the Star Trek future, which is bullshit and very counter to Roddenberry's vision, such as in Star Trek Picard Season 1, where he went into that, interview where they, like, ambushed him and started, like, grilling him on his support for the Romulans or whatever, and that's, like, and how someone's walking down the street and they saw these TVs with Picard on it. I was like, that's not Star Trek. That's not how they presented the 24th century, or in this case 25th century, to be. And then there was Lower Decks. Now Lower Decks I'm actually a bit more forgiving of. Don't get me wrong, I still didn't like it, but I'm a little bit more forgiving of it because it's a comedy show and because it's kind of a parody. I do acknowledge it as canon, but still, it is. They tend to be a bit more loosey-goosey with the Star Trek universe, and it still bothers me, but not as much. Like, it doesn't annoy me as much if has a live action show doing it, such as this episode. So not only is coming from a place that I hate the format to begin with, I think is cliche and lazy, but on top of that, the format works even less in Star Trek than it does in other shows. So already I'm coming at this when the episode began from a huge, like, so many strikes against this episode just right when it started. But I still tried to have an open mind and be like, well, maybe this will be a good episode. But then it pisses me off even more because Ortegas' brother, whatever his name is, it's obvious that he has a bias against Starfleet and is trying to portray them as this, evil military or militaristic, what they said, like colonizers and empire, evil. I'm like, here's the thing. People like me who don't have a life and spend a lot of time analyzing Star Trek and analyzing the Federation and Starfleet and how it's presented within the confines of Star Trek would have the exact opposite complaint of Starfleet. Not that they're too, empire building and too militaristic, is that they're too much of a pushover and sometimes allow themselves to be stepped all over and taken advantage of because they're so interested in peace. Now, granted, this is coming from someone who is very much a pacifist, who is very much anti-war, but there are some realities, like Ortegas' brother being like, oh, well, why are you so well armed and why you have these phasers and why you're supposed to be explorers. I'm like, but we've seen in like many of Star Trek episodes what happens to ships that don't have any defenses, that they get taken advantage of, they get robbed by pirates, they get their people kidnapped and sold into slavery, or they simply get destroyed. So that's just that. For him to have that viewpoint is like, again, this is coming from a pacifist who hates war, but for him to have that viewpoint is beyond naive. It's like a step further than naive. It's like, oh God, it's to the point where I don't buy it. It's to the point where this is bad writing and I don't believe a character could actually think this in the universe. Like, no one like this, unless they're, severely mentally disturbed or, I don't know, brainwashed by propaganda, no one could actually believe this. That, they're all militaristic and like, that's so fucking stupid. And that was bugging me throughout the entire episode, especially the way he like framed his documentary as like he would put subtitles like, oh, this is the weapons they have and how much weapons do they have, it's classified and all this shit, and focusing on all that bullshit and like grilling people about, have you killed anyone before and shit like this. so dumb. That is so dumb. It's like, not only that, is that Starfleet sort of, yes, its primary goal is exploration, but when you're exploring the unknown is dangerous. And this is, I mean, it's funny because we actually saw the origins of this in Enterprise, because Enterprise went out to explore the unknown and they were not that heavily armed, and they constantly got the shit kicked out of them to the point where the Earth almost got destroyed by the Xindi. And so that's when Archer was like very, cynical over this, and it's like, oh, you better arm anything to the teeth. But that's just realism. And not only that, is that they can protect others if they are armed like this. And they usually, we know that they are not antagonistic, that they're not militaristic, that they're not going around bullying everyone, because anyone who lives in the Federation, I mean, should be completely aware of this. Like, this is absurd! This is absurd! That he would have this viewpoint. It is so stupid. It drives me angry. But here's what makes me even more angry. Is that it seems to me, if there's any commentary that this episode is making, the commentary seems to be people in the press that criticize authority figures are idiots and don't know what the fuck they're talking about and should just shut up. And maybe I'm misinterpreting that. Maybe that's not the intention of the writers, but that seems to be what this episode is saying, because it's portraying Ortegas' brother as the biggest idiot who ever walked the Earth, or the Starfleet ship, as the case may be. And so to me, that's saying that people in the press are morons and they don't know what the fuck they're talking about, and they should just let authority figures do whatever they want and not question them. And how dare he try to bring this information to the public and present a skewed, fucked up view. And to me, this is a very dangerous statement, even if it's unintentional, is a very dangerous statement to be making in this particular time when we have an authoritarian wannabe dictator attacking the free press and calling it fake news and saying don't report on what I'm doing. Now, I am aware that this episode was written before, Trump got reelected. But still, it's like irresponsible to release something like this. Even if that's not the intention, I think that is definitely a message that seems to come across of the press is stupid and should just shut the fuck up, and they don't know what it's talking about and can present a biased view. Now, some of it may be, it's okay because they explain the storyline with Ortegas' brother just having a grudge against Starfleet because of what happened to his sister, and he holds that against Starfleet. But that doesn't make it okay for me. For one thing, if in the end he had this change of heart and change of mind and realized that Starfleet wasn't to blame, then why is it, because this film that we're watching was edited and put together after the events of this episode, so why is it that the bulk of the documentary presents them as like this evil militaristic colonizing force evil empire, and then all of a sudden towards the end it's like, no, actually they're not that bad. So why didn't he edit it differently when he realized that he was wrong about his assumptions? Now, I'll tell you why, so the fucking episode can happen. That's why. It's so dumb. And, yeah, so that thing with Ortegas' brother being like in a horror, like giving him a talk, you're just being biased, like, doesn't solve anything. For one, I don't even buy that someone who is living in the Federation should be well aware of what Starfleet stands for, what the Federation stands for, that he would even have that attitude about his sister to begin with. And I think I already said this, but the whole thing about, get this camera out of my face, and the way that it's filmed like, The Office or whatever, like that sort of documentary style where they're trying, or like a found footage thing, because sometimes they use like the cameras that are on the Enterprise and they have this like stock, photo kind of thing, and they sometimes like the person's out of frame or whatever, and then it has the camera like floating around and getting people's faces and zooming in. Fucking hate it. I hate it. It's so gimmicky. Like, Strange New Worlds need to stop doing gimmick episodes. Sorry. My microphone doesn't like me when I get... But anyway, they need to stop doing gimmick episodes. And I know from the fucking Comic-Con, when they see the footage of the puppet episode coming next season, that they're not going to. Like, this could be the best Star Trek show. I think it was the best modern Trek show until they start doing bullshit like this. Now, all that being said, the plot of the episode was okay with the aliens. I think it obviously would have been better if we didn't have this bullshit about the documentary. But the bullshit about the documentary, I feel like, was the actual main plot of the episode. That the actual thing with the other aliens or whatever was kind of like the B story, or at the very least it just wasn't focused on, like, it wasn't developed very well. Like, watch this review that thought that this was making commentary on Israel-Palestine, and if so, that would be very terrible commentary. But I don't think it was, because it's not developed enough to do that. Like, they never explain, like, what the deal is with the like, it was even hard to follow because they didn't, like, develop it or focus on it, because they just kind of glossed over it because they're focused more on the stupid documentary bullshit. And so something about a war between two alien races, and one is losing and has, by an invading force, and so Starfleet supporting them, trying to help them provide aid, but this race is taking these creatures and, like, training them and using technology to make them warlike, and so they can use them as weapons. And then during the course of the episode, the Enterprise crew comes to realize that it's wrong to do that, and that they're sort of torturing the aliens, and this one particular alien wants to kill itself because it's been corrupted to be warlike, and it doesn't want to be that way. And so they promise that they'll make sure that their children won't be corrupted in the same way. It's kind of interesting storyline, particularly with Uhura having to, like, Spock trying to communicate telepathically, but it's sort of overwhelming him, and it actually would make sense for someone who's not telepathically inclined, because they would be overwhelmed by the creatures, for them to communicate it. So we have Uhura do it, and I do like this. This was a good use of Uhura, and showing her communication skills. And it's goes to show that Strange New Worlds actually is developing Uhura way more than she ever was in the original series, because let's face it, the original series, she was just there to answer the phone and like, "Oh, Captain," and whatever. Nothing against Nichelle Nichols, she was great, but she was underused and underdeveloped. And so I do love when they do stuff like this and show her as an expert on her field, and also her personal growth, because in this show she was just out of Starfleet Academy, young and inexperienced and whatnot. So to see her, like, willing to risk her life to save these creatures was cool. And one thing I do really much have to mention is the visual effects on the alien creatures was fucking stunning. Like, this is some of the best, like, most beautiful, like, scenes or visual effects that we've seen in Star Trek. Like, it's absolutely amazing. Like, especially the scene with the alien creature, like, bursting out of the planet and stuff. The visual effects I cannot fault in this episode for a second. And they were really, really good. And so it was pretty to look at. But but none of that really negated the whole. Yeah, it's just, I don't know, because the final solution of the episode was like, oh, well, this is, we're Starfleet, and good people make up Starfleet, and that's why Starfleet is good. No, actually, Starfleet is good to its core as a systematic foundation. Like, at its foundation, this agency was created by a post-utopian society that has post-scarcity, that goes out and has good intentions, made up by the best of the alien races joining together to create this federation and use Starfleet as their exploration arm, and that's why they're good, not because it's made up of good people. I feel like that kind of individualist attitude is not something I really agree with, but I mean, it helps that it's made up of good people, but I think, and we've seen our share of bad roles in Star Trek, but I think most of the time, pretty much all the time, I would say the bad roles are defeated, because the point is that people with ill intent like that don't thrive and they don't survive, because the whole structure of Starfleet and Federation is such that it encourages the moral behavior that we see. And so saying that, oh, it's down to the people doesn't upset me as much as the reporter thing, but it's not something that I think they should do. Put it that way. So anyway, my rating for what is Starfleet out of 10, it's gonna be a 3. Very poor. I first I thought I was gonna give this episode a 5, then a 4, but now after talking about it, I'm giving it a 3, which is the same rating I gave the holodeck episode. So it tells you how bad I think this episode is. In fact, I don't know which one I like worse, which one I think is worse, but I might have to think about it for a while. But my sister says something on her review on Facebook that I agree with, that even though we still have 3 episodes left, I think it's already it's not too soon to say that this is the worst season of Stranger New Worlds, especially because we know that next week's episode is probably going to suck, because it's the one we saw the clip of when half the crew turn into Vulcans and looks so stupid. And so, but even if episodes 9 and 10 are amazing and the best episodes ever made, I still feel like it's not enough to make it so season 3 is not the worst season of the show. There was just a lot of mediocrity and episode, like, really there was only like one really good episode last week's one. Like, other than that, most of them were just like, oh yeah, that's pretty good, or that's good, but then a couple of crap that they just try to do these stupid gimmicks. Which sucks, because in principle I think Strange New Worlds is the best live action modern Trek show. Just as I talk about this a lot, just the characters, the way it's filmed, the way, well, of course not in this episode because the way they filmed it sucked, but typically the way it's filmed, the pacing of it, the interactions, how it's character based, like all these things I love, but they're ruining the show with these goddamn gimmicks. Just don't do the gimmicks. Like, why do you need to do these gimmicks? Especially tired cliche ones that have been done a dozen times already by other sci-fi shows. And of course the other holodeck one was one that's been done dozens of times by Star Trek already. So, just, God damn it. Anyway, that is it for my review of what is Starfleet. Check me out as I come back next week to review Season 3, Episode 8 of Strange New Worlds. And as I said, it's already not looking good for that episode, but we'll see. We'll see. And yeah, you can check out my channel as I continue to cover Star Trek, covering every episode of Star Trek, currently up to Season 2 of Voyager and Season 4 of Deep Space Nine. So be sure to check out my channel as I continue to cover Star Trek, and subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. And thanks a lot for watching.